Where you are?
I think they have a general idea. At this point, after 3 years, if they can't figure it out, they're probably not doing their job very well.
This mild-mannered 33-year-old is arguably America's most wanted fugitive, NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden.
Breaking details on that whistleblower who leaked top-secret documents
faces almost certain criminal prosecution.
For more than 3 years, he's been hiding in plain sight here in the Russian capital. Can you walk around freely the streets of Moscow and not be recognized?
I walked here.
Are you ever recognized?
If I walk out on the street, people have no idea who I am. If I walk into a computer store, everyone in the store will immediately recognize me.
Since August of 2013, he's been living in exile, provided asylum by Russia after leaking an undetermined number, perhaps as high as 1.5 million, classified NSA documents to journalists. His revelations expose systemic government surveillance of civilians here and abroad, a disclosure that both enraged and embarrassed the American intelligence community.
My name is Edward Snowden.
In 2013, filmmaker Laura Poitras captured Snowden's difficult choice, part of her Oscar-winning documentary, Citizen 4.
We were able to get the information that needed to get out.
You're seen going through a series of security rituals, unplugging phones, covering your head as you type passwords into your computer. You seem keenly aware of a target being on your back.
Those moments, it's actually difficult to watch them on film because the pressure, the stress was so great. You only focused on one thing, and that's the mission.
Edward Snowden was charged under the Espionage Act and faces up to 30 years in prison if he returns to the U.S.
This has done unnecessary damage to U.S. intelligence capabilities and U.S. diplomacy.
Now, with his Russian residency permit set to expire next year, the computer wizard's firewall may be melting. Donald Trump tweeted about you in 2014, writing, "Snowden is a traitor. When our country was great, do you know what we did to traitors?"
I wonder when it is that he thinks America was great. We're a country that was born from an act of treason against a government that had run out of control. But we should always make a distinction that right and wrong is a very different standard than legal and illegal.
Are you saying what you did was right?
I think, yeah.
Or legal? Or both?
I would not have done it if I didn't believe it was right.
But you would acknowledge it was illegal.
It's pretty sketchy there. But look, every act of progression in our nation's history has involved tension with law. And that's because the laws were wrong.
There is a lot of talk out there that Vladimir Putin may hand you over to the United States as a goodwill gesture to the Trump administration. How concerned/nervous are you about that possibility?
It wasn't so many years ago that people were saying, this guy's a Russian spy. But countries don't give up their spies. That's a vindication.
A vindication of what?
The fact that I'm independent, the fact that I have always worked on behalf of the United States, and the fact that Russia doesn't own me.
Backed by big money supporters like billionaire George Soros and Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and the ACLU, the Pardon Snowden campaign has been trying to sway public opinion. But as the sun sets on the Obama administration, the prospects of a pardon are dimming as well. If you had 1 minute to make your case face-to-face to President Obama, what would you say to convince him to pardon you?
I wouldn't. I would respectfully say to the president, I understand you have an incredibly difficult job. No one wants to be a whistleblower. This is something that's hard to do, and this is America. When something goes wrong, don't we want somebody to stand up and say something about it?
But after a 2-year investigation, a bipartisan congressional committee has determined the cost was too high. In a scathing report and letter to the White House, the group wrote, "Mr. Snowden is not a patriot. He is not a whistleblower. He is a criminal." But Snowden insists the only thing damaged by his disclosures was the reputation of the intelligence community.
These officials have had every opportunity to show evidence that harm came as a result, and they haven't.
Absent a pardon, Snowden's legal team is hoping for a possible plea deal to keep him out of prison or to reduce his sentence. How much prison time would you be willing to serve?
I don't put a number on it. When most
None,
people who
zero.
are involved in some sort of case where the government goes, this person was acting in good faith, no charges are ever brought, or they're brought very minimally. Perhaps the best known case in recent history here is General Petraeus.
Fast-moving developments this evening after the stunning resignation of General David Petraeus.
And the consequences of Dave Petraeus' infidelity are astonishing.
Who shared information that was far more highly classified than I ever did with journalists. And he shared this information not with the public for their benefit, but with his lover. They charged him with a misdemeanor.
Only 4 years after his scandal broke, retired General David Petraeus is now being considered to serve in the Trump cabinet as Secretary of State, appearing yesterday on This Week.
I made a serious mistake. I acknowledged it. I apologized.
For Snowden, forgiveness may be harder earned, but it hasn't stopped him from claiming his place on the international stage.
While Edward Snowden is living in a still undisclosed location somewhere here in Moscow, thanks to modern technology, he is able to be part of the virtual conversation, making public appearances via Skype, satellite, and the now famous Snowbot, which is really like an iPad on wheels.
When you look back at the last 3 years, was it worth it?
Absolutely, I would do it again.
No regrets.
No regrets at all.
For Nightline, I'm Katie Couric in Moscow.
Can you get your lens in that hole there? That's a little monument that the locals put up in memory of the children. And just inside that wall there is where we came across the table with the remains in it. There used to be a little apple orchard in there. And that's where we went in, we were getting apples. So we jumped at the wall, and when we landed, we felt a hollow. There was a crack in the slab. So we actually pried it open. When we pulled it across, like you could see, that the skeleton remains there, like bones. We were told then the next day that the priest had come up and said a prayer and not to go in there again, which we came in straight away. And the whole side had been leveled and cleared.
We always passed those 10-foot high walls. And I used to wonder why was there broken glass all along the top of the wall. I remember the children at school just vaguely, and I do remember they were segregated from the rest of us. We weren't allowed to play with them. These were like a different species at the time.
Yeah.
My mother got pregnant outside of marriage, and of course that was a big sin. And the priest in the parish got to hear about it and told her parents that it was an awful disgrace, that she couldn't be seen out because she'd be a bad influence.
I know, that's
So
why it's not.
they told her then that when the baby is due, that she would be taken to Tuam, the home in Tuam, and the nuns would look after her there. Then he opened the door and told her she'll have to leave. And she said, I want my son. And they just closed the door on her face. And every week then she would walk in the centre of Tuam, out the Dublin Road, every week for 5.5 years, knocking on the door. I want to take my son out there. That's my son you have in there. I want to rear him. I want to look after him. And they said, no, he's got to be fostered out. And that was it.
I have no memories of it. I was there for 4.5 years.
There was a hedge each side of us and a crowd of us walking. That's the only memory I have.
I thought I was an animal at one stage. I used to get dreams at night that I was growing horns. And when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do, such a sigh of relief.
There was no love. There was no care. What happened in the home? You know, it can happen to you, that you can block things out at such a young age.
I suppose at the back of my mind, it was there in the subconscious, wondering about the children. I thought it would be just a simple history. The history of the Bon Secours sisters and how they worked and how they operated. I thought I'd go to the local library and thought I'd get a volume of information in the home to work on. There was absolutely nothing. So I went to the local people and I said that's the best way to find out information. And locals were a bit hesitant to say, oh, the poor little children in there, you know, they were treated badly. An odd person to tell you they remember screaming in the home. There's still very much a hush-hush affair. But I was gathering all this information in the back of my mind and getting a picture. And it was only then I got the story of, back in the 1970s, that the two boys found bones of children in a tank.
I've often thought about it afterwards, like, you know, what did we come across? Like, it was a chamber, a H-shaped chamber, you know, and the amount of bones that were in it, there was a good few. Like, what we came across in 1972 was reported, and the government knew about it, but yet they didn't do anything about it.
This whole story wouldn't get out of my head, so I had to follow it.
Oh, they got
I had to determine who was buried there. First of all, of course, I asked the Bon Secours sisters, and they said they had no knowledge or no records whatsoever of any burial in the home. And got on to the county council who owned the land then, and they had no records of burials either. So I wondered then, my thoughts went then to how many children actually died in the home. That's an inspector's report for the Tuam home from 1947. It shows the condition of the babies and toddlers, and it makes very harrowing reading. You have a 13-month-old baby in the care of Bon Secours sisters or a nursing congregation. You have a miserable, emaciated child with voracious appetite and no control over body function, probably mentally defective. Wizened limbs, 3 months old, wizened limbs. 3 weeks old, emaciated and delicate. And that was the Excel copy of the deaths of the babies and children. Unbelievable. Okay, all these deaths, where are they buried? They're not in the main Tuam graveyard. They're not in the mother's hometown graveyards. It was becoming quite obvious what had happened. At the time, there was a lot of questioning my findings, that it wasn't possible. And I was asking myself, is it the fact that there were illegitimate children? Is this stigma still around? That people just still don't care? Just made me more determined to fight this and to say, these children have to be there. People have to know about it.